Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Good evening. Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to be hanging out with you once again on Tuesday evening. As you know, being a business owner, there's so many different things that you need to know that you can't know them all. But that's not to say that you're not responsible for everything. So it's critical for you to continue to learn and develop your business knowledge. But not only that, your business can only grow as far as you're prepared to take it. So it's important also to develop your leadership skills so you can take your business further and avoid being stuck. So that's really the reason why we created this show. It's about helping entrepreneurs, business owners like you develop further advanced business knowledge as well as enhance your leadership skills. So we always have great guests who have the ability to share on both accounts. And, we've been doing this for over 5 years now, over 250 episodes. Actually, we're closer to 6 years and going strong. And really looking forward to, continuing the process. As you may know, actually going to be moving to Charlotte soon, and a lot of things that's going to change a lot of things, a new location, but also got some exciting new things that we want to do. So can't wait to share more and more of them with you. But just know that we got some exciting new stuff coming, and look forward to sharing it with you. So tonight, our topic is how to grow in a sustainable way. I think that's always a challenge for a lot of business owners. Growth is challenging, and it's even more challenging to grow in a sustainable way. But if you don't grow in a sustainable way, your business is not going to be as you're going to run into more challenges than you would otherwise run into it if you built it in a sustainable way. And you're taking on a lot more risk unnecessarily. So we're going to talk about how do you grow your business in a sustainable way. So my guest tonight is Gene Bohensky, and you've probably seen him before. He's been a multiple time guest, and there's only a few people who have an opportunity to come back, and he's one of them. So excited to have him back again. So Gene, let me bring you in. Hey Gene, how you doing tonight?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Andrew. It's always a pleasure.
Definitely. Always great to have you on. Definitely we've done some work together. I've seen the great things that you do with your clients. We both supported each other in what we're doing, and that's what it's all about. So tonight we're going to talk about something that Gene's been on me for a while about. So get a chance to share those and prove to Gene that I've been doing this, working on this, and we're really going to be able to use this in a way to really help a lot of business owners. So you want to do a quick intro, Gene, and then we'll get started?
Yeah, so for those who don't know me, I'm Gene Bohensky. I'm the CEO of Archer's Contact Solutions. We're going to be rebranding to Archer's Delegation Partners in the next month or so. I run a virtual assistant agency with my partner out of the Philippines, where we've scaled the business. We're now at 120 employees, which is kind of amazing to think about. Really developing a system to provide trained assistants and delegation partners for small business owners to help them scale and grow their businesses. So Andrew's been a key part in helping me with this project. We've had a lot of discussions on how to grow and scale, and his guidance has been really essential for me during this period. But I've also helped Andrew with his Masterpreneur program. So this is going to be exciting to talk about his 10 growth factors in this program and how each of them is important to consider really to grow and scale any business, right? So this is what makes Andrew's system so important. It's a system that can apply to any business at any stage and allow that business to have a clear roadmap on how to grow from where you are today to where you want to go.
Great. Thanks, Gene. So definitely excited about being able to talk about this further. I think that, if we go back to the beginning, I've been working with entrepreneurs and business owners full time for 17 years now, and work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and taught tens of thousands of people about business. And in that, I've just learned, gained experience, exposure to a lot of key things that every business owner needs to know. And that drove me to write my first book, Running Your Small Business Like a Pro. And what we've done is continue to build on it with the workbook and then the Masterpreneur playbook, ultimately, where it really brings together everything into a single framework that is very powerful for helping entrepreneurs and business owners. And that's the framework I use for supporting business owners. But we've really turned it into a consistent process to be able to help entrepreneurs and business owners grow more successfully. So what is the Masterpreneur playbook, and what does it do? What is it about? So first thing in the Masterpreneur playbook is the Masterpreneur path. So you've got 5 steps going from startup to scaling your business. But that's only the beginning. We've expanded it to really create the Masterpreneur growth system. And what it combines is the Masterpreneur path, which is the 5 steps from startup to scaling, and combine that with the Masterpreneur evolution, which is the 5 development steps for the business owner. But we just took it to the next level by adding growth factors. What are growth factors? It's a way to really unlock the potential of your business and understand what your business needs to grow in a sustainable way. So the growth factors are 10 different key components of growth. And we've got them here. The 10 growth factors: product lifestyle, marketing focus, talent management, capacity conundrum, owner work profile, customer profile, view from the top, operational tendency, financial maturity, and organizational viability. So we're going to take a look at each of those individually. But before we do that, Gene, we've talked extensively about the Masterpreneur Playbook and process over the development. So, the first part, if you could just say a little bit about, what your thoughts are on the path and the evolution, because that's
the Masterpreneur path, going from startup to scaling, right? So what Andrew has been able to do, and what we've discussed all this time, is how we create a system, right, that is able to assess any business at the stage of where they are in every one of those growth factors, right? So this is the real brilliance about the system. You have 5 stages and 10 growth factors, and your business is going to be at one of those stages, right? Because every business has those 10 growth factors, right? They're integral to every business and every description of a business and how it operates and what it does. And everybody is on one of those 5 steps, right? From startup to scaling. And so what Andrew has developed is a very clean way of assessing a business in every one of those 10 growth factors and every one of those steps. But it's even more than that, because once you know where you are, right, you can also define what you need to do to go from one step to the other. Right. So, for example, if you're in capacity conundrum or in marketing, and you have done your assessment in your business, and you're in step 2, and you want to go to step 3 in your business, well, we know that once you go from 2 to 3, you have to do certain things, right? And this is really the key things of where his experience comes in, because no matter where you are in your assessment, right? Andrew's program gives you a roadmap based upon where you are and where you go, right? So he's done essentially 3 things, all right, which is pretty unbelievable how he's put all these things together. The first thing is the path, right? The steps 1 through 5 to describe where you are, not just overall, but where you are in the 10 growth factors, right? So there's your steps 1 through 5. He's going to show the growth factors slide next, I hope, right? You can be steps 1 through 5 in any one of those growth factors. But here's the key. Once you take the assessment, Andrew has also determined an action plan for every one of those steps from where you are today and where you want to go, what you need to do. So if you take that assessment, and in one growth factor, you're on step 2, and another you're in step 3, and another you're in step 4, he's going to provide you with a report, with a roadmap that will tell you, well, if you're here, you got to go here. And if you want to go here, this is what you need to do, right? And this is where his long experience comes in, because he's done this for so many businesses, that his ability to tell you what you need to do to go from step 2 to 3 is, for him, it's an instinct, right? That's why it was easy for him to create this, because he's one of these few people in the world that have done this for hundreds of people, right? And this is why it's so unique, because in any single growth factor of the business, right, he's developed a plan that any business can use, right? He knows if you're in step 3 and you want to go to step 4 and you're in marketing, most likely you're missing out on these 3-4 things that he's going to tell you to do. And that's the mastery on this program. This is why this is a unique program and is really the state of the art, right? And so I've helped him a little bit of this, because I've lent him whatever experience I've had being a tab coach and having my business, Archers, scale. So we've been able to kind of do this together now. As I scale, I'm learning too, and he's helping me. And this is how we kind of stumble through growth. Like every business does, you stumble through growth. but I think going back to what Andrew has created here, it is really a result of his tremendous experience and the ability to simplify a very complex, um, very complex topic, right? It has many facets and many variables, right? You have to really know a lot of things. You have to know about sales. You have to know about marketing. You have to know about finance. You have to know about capacity. I mean, there's so many things you need to know about running a business, right? You have to be in it for a long time. And with many variables being thrown at you, in order for you to create a system like Andrew has done, and I want to make sure that that's not minimized. How's that for a description?
Excellent. No, Gene, I appreciate that because you've seen it through the process, and can appreciate it because it looks simple and easy, but a tremendous amount of work and knowledge is behind it.
Well, one of the things I want to make sure that the listeners understand and that Andrew understands is this is really a revolutionary system, right? I mean, I me being the big thinker, right? That's my personality, the big dreamer and thinker. And I instantly thought, this is a system he needs to hire 100 or 200 coaches for over the country to help business owners all across the country, help them grow, right? So that's what this is for. It provides the framework to expand and influence and help more people beyond your own individual ability, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do as a person. There's only so many people you can talk to during the day. There's only so many podcasts you can do, right? There's only so much you can do. So if you really want to expand this and help a lot of people and help not just, a couple hundred business owners, but thousands, right? Then you got to get this in the hands of many people. They have to promote it. They have to use this as a system to help other people.
Definitely, Gene. I think that, this is something I've spent years working in and a lot of time just to really turn it from something that I do working with people into a framework that is consistent and can work for any business in any industry. One thing about this is it's for small businesses, $10 million in revenue and below. Even though that's like the vast majority of businesses, there aren't a lot of great tools or knowledge shared in that space. So, one of the things is just creating something like that for business owners who are at those levels to help guide them. And, there's specific things that you need to know at each level. So we've been able to, working with so many businesses, see what's needed. Each step, there's a certain goal that the business owner has to have. There's a certain challenge you're going to have to overcome. There's a certain structure that you're going to need to create. And there's a certain leadership skill that you're going to need to develop and demonstrate. So at each of those 5 steps, but not only that, it translates into so many more things. So, we've talked a little bit about the path, but what I wanted to do today is talk about the growth factors, because that really takes everything to the next level. Because not only do you have where you are on the path, but now you can see where you are on each of 10 key factors for growing a business. So it's a multidisciplinary, multidimensional program and assessment. And, we've created the online assessment that you can actually take for free and sort of see what it is and see how it helps. And then if you want to sign up, register for a debrief, there's a cost, but we go into a lot of detail and provide you a path. But let's take a look at, we're looking at the growth factors. So we've got the different growth factors, but this can give you some appreciation for what we're talking about. So the framework is we got the 5-step journey. You combine that with 10 growth factors and 5 steps with each growth factor, and you've got over 9 million combinations that could come out of the assessment for your business. And each combination has a different prescription for where you are, what you should be doing. So unlike a lot of assessments, they may tell you one thing, or they may be set up to lead you so that you come up with a certain result. This is really about identifying where you are and helping to see, based on that, what you really need. It's not designed to try and sell you something. It's designed to outline where you are and let you know what you need to go do to go to the next level. So, so that's sort of what it's about. Anything else you want to share before we get started on the growth factors, Gene?
No, I think it's important. I think it's important for any business owner to take this assessment because, like you said, you got to know where you are first, and most likely, you know where you are, but that doesn't necessarily mean you know where you're going.
Yeah. And also, a lot of times you think you know where you are, but I find that a lot. A lot of businesses owners, you may think you know where you are, even me, but then when it's objectively assessed, you might actually be somewhere different.
Right.
So, that's the first step. You got to know where you are and where you want to go. And so, this can help you figure out where you should go and how you should go, and really what to focus on, and what order to focus on things. So, we talked about 10 different growth factors. Each one is a different discipline of business, but put together, that's what you need to have to create a sustainable business. And that's really the goal, is to have a business that's sustainable. So, Gene, let's take a look at the first growth factor. So we've got financial maturity. And the factor refers to your business's ability to effectively manage its finances.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yes. So that's a challenge for many businesses. But talk a little bit about what you've seen in terms of that.
Well, the first thing is that when you start a business, you're looking at the money that you have in the bank, right? So most business owners are looking what they have in the bank, and it's day to day. Their feelings depend upon what they have in the bank, and they're not really planning. They're just hoping that they're making money. Maybe they've made some calculations that they're making money when they're doing jobs. I've worked with many business owners like you have that have made inaccurate calculations and thought they were making money when they weren't. So with financial maturity, the first step is to make sure you're making money. Make sure you have a real math equation that you know what you're doing. As you progress along the steps, you're going to have to understand your costs and understand how to manage your money. You have to understand how you're going to make profit, where the profit's going to come from. And if you're growing, you're going to run into cash flow issues. And most people don't really understand this until they actually do it. I mean, I can talk about it. People can talk about cash flow. I mean, you could be making a lot of money and run out of money, right? So I mean, like most people wouldn't even understand what that's about until it actually happens, right? So a lot of these things that and this is why I go back to why Andrew is so experienced and has such important things to say, because he's been through these things with multiple people, and so cash flow is a challenge, because when you're starting to grow and you're starting to grow, you if you grow too fast, you run out of money. The profit coming in isn't enough to pay for the investment that you need to grow. It's only later on in the later stages where you understand your costs well, you understand the money coming in, you have good financial management, you have an accountant that has all your accounts in order, all your expenses are accounted for on your balance sheet and in your financial program, whether it's QuickBooks or Zero or something else, and you understand what you're doing, the money coming in, the money coming out. Then you can start planning, you can start expecting what's going to happen, right? So all this thing kind of changes as you grow and you go through the stages. And I'm just being really not really accurate. I'm just kind of giving you a feel for what it's like to go through the stages without giving you the actual stage. And in Andrew's book and Andrew's system, he will tell you most likely based upon where you are, what stage you're in, depending on the financial problems you're having.
Right. Well, in my first book, Running Your Small Business Like a Pro, the third chapter is called What is Your Greatest Fear? And what I found is the greatest fear of most business owners is numbers and analysis. And as a result, generally their financial maturity is low relative to where their business is. But that's a problem, because as your business grows, you have to become more sophisticated financially and with your financial management practice.
Well, it's essentially because you have to plan, right? You have to go from looking at what's in your bank account to planning what's going to happen in the next 6 months, right? Definitely. And you might have to make decisions, right? If you want to for tax planning or profit planning or things you want to invest, right? You have expectations of the money coming in. I know a lot of people who got into business who were not detail oriented and avoided even looking at the numbers, and they all ran into trouble.
Definitely.
They all ran into trouble because the truth is, I'm sure you'll agree with this, that in order for a business to make real money, it needs to go through multiple processes of optimization. Right? You need to optimize, you need to cut costs, you need to figure those things out. If you don't do that, if you're just loose with the money, you lose money, right? Because you want to pay your employees because they do a great job. Yeah, you want to pay your vendors on time because they do a great job. You want to give your customers a great deal because they're your customers. And you want to make money. You want to buy the new TV and buy a new Cadillac because you're successful. You feel successful. Well, guess what? You can't do that all at once, right? Everyone runs into that, right? Yeah. You think because you're successful, all of a sudden you got money to burn, and you can do all kinds of things in your business. But the reality is that the only businesses that make money are disciplined on the financial management and are, they're tight with their costs. They're optimizing what they're paying their people, right? They're getting as much money as they can from their customers for their product or service. So and none of that is easy to do.
Yeah. And I mean, without understanding your numbers, you can't understand how your business works. So the
No.
bigger your business becomes, the harder it is to manage your business without numbers. And we talked about your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. At a certain point, your financial management practices are going to keep you from moving forward, or even worse, have you end up losing, going out of business unexpectedly when it didn't have to be that way.
Well,
And
I
I think
have a
that's,
couple of clients that ran into that exact trouble. They didn't get
yeah,
those balances right. They either paid themselves too much, or they paid their employees too much, or they weren't paying attention to their numbers, and they didn't act within the framework that the business was giving them.
definitely.
So
So
financial management is a key part of that.
definitely. Okay. So let's take a look at the next one. We may go through these a little faster, but just as we go through the fall, we're going to do a show on each of these because it's so important. There's so much depth within these. So let's take a look. So next we have your marketing focus. The marketing focus factor looks at your strategic approach to defining and reaching your target market. So where's your market focus, and is it focused in the right place in the right way? At the time, based on where your business is. So, in my first book, Running Small Business Like a Pro, the second chapter is what's your most important job? And that's sales and marketing. So, getting your market focus and your sales right is the key to growing into a successful business. So that's why this is so important to it. Gene, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what normally happens with a business is you do business with your friends and family and people and then you start replicating what you do, and you do business with a bunch of different people, and then you end up doing probably a wider variety of things, right? A wider variety of customers. And over time, as you grow, the only way you're going to grow is learning how to focus and become good at things that you can grow with, right? So I'll just give you an idea for what it's like to work with my virtual assistant agency. We first started with a number of things. We did some cold calling campaigns, we did some lead generation, we did some VAs. We were all over the place. It was all different pricing for people, right? We were making money, but it wasn't really focused. Later on, we realized that some of those calling campaigns aren't paying very much, so we dropped them. Right? We decided to get out of that business and just focus on. Well, I was doing some lead generation, but mostly the executive VAs, and so that was another focus. Then we decided to drop some of the lead generation, really only do the executive VAs. The next step is figuring what are the markets that we're best at. Where should we do the executive VAs? Should we do them for medical offices or creative companies or real estate agents or real estate businesses, right? So the trajectory is really honing the target until you get really good at something that you can repeat. Right? You have experience, knowledge, customers, you've developed unique processes over the time, and you've developed a unique product that you can sell to a unique audience. And that's how you can really scale. So you can see how that kind of comes out of, it grows over time. You focus over time, you figure it out what you're going to do. That's at least our trajectory. Some people can start businesses with already a focus in mind. And sometimes there's startups where, they say, well, we're going to do this. So we're going to target, contractors. So we're going to develop a unique CRM for contractors. And we're only going to sell to contractors. And then later on, they're only going to sell to roofers, right? And they're going to have a product just for roofers. And then you can really scale. You have something specific for roofers, and then there's 15,000 roofing businesses. Once you're able to niche down, then you can decide that's my customer base. I'm going to focus on those 15,000 roofers with my CRM program, and that's how I'm going to really take it from my small business to a monster business.
Definitely. I think that, marketing is so important, but marketing is about planning and strategies. And your marketing focus is, what is your strategy focused on? And there's a hierarchy. As you grow, your marketing has to evolve. Your target market has to evolve. I've been in business 17 years. Probably every 2 to 3 years, my market changes. It evolves, I evolve, and we got to find the right product market fit. So, as you're in business, you're going to have to continually evolve your marketing strategies, who you're marketing to. It's a learning process. Pretty much throughout
right
business, your marketing is going to be updated. But what the growth factor looks at is also, who are you targeting? Because there's a hierarchy. I heard someone talk about business, how to grow a large business. And they sort of looked at it as, sales, especially service sales, generally, you're doing, 100,000 or 100,000 plus or minus in revenue if it's B2C. B2B, generally you may do like 100K to $1 million. But then B2G, to the government, that's where a lot of times you have to go to be a multi-million dollar company. But what we look at is sort of what type of customers you're focused on, and based on where your business is, and match that up to where everything else is to see if that's the right area that you should be targeting. So,
right.
Market focus is important. Let's see what's next. And actually, let me just go. Jade is here. She helps make us look good. So we've got some things in the chat. Just want to see what we got real quick. Couple questions. Actually, this is a great question. Oh, wait. This one. What should a business owner prioritize first? Improving internal processes or generating leads? So that's actually part of why I created the framework and the assessment, because that answer depends on where you are with the business. Do you have enough sales? If you don't have enough sales, you probably want more leads. Are you having problems delivering on your sales? Then it's probably processes. So there's this, based on your stage, there's things that you focus on. So before you can do internal processes, you have to have done a certain amount of business, so you figure out what your process is and test it and make sure that it's a good process. So depending where your business is going to drive what you should focus on first. But just as a rule of thumb, the lower your revenues, the more important it is to generate more leads than setting up processes, because You know.
I think it's important. I think it's really important here. I have to say this.
Mm-hmm.
Many people focus on the processes because they're not comfortable selling. And they don't sell until they have the processes. And I would answer this differently.
Okay.
I would always answer this in generate leads first, because you need to the sales needs to force the improving processes. You don't improve the processes until you need to,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I mean, like, this is very important, right? Because I know a lot of people that have wasted time creating processes and developing processes that they don't even need, because they don't even know what they need, because they don't know what's going to be like when the business grows, right? It's like putting the cart before the horse, right? Focus on sales, sell your heart out, and when you get to the point where you need to optimize processes, do it when your cart is full.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
And you can afford to do it right, and you can afford to do it to optimize sales that you already have.
Right. So when when you're making enough sales and your operations or other things aren't able to handle it, that's when you have a need for processes. But I think definitely your statement about a lot of people avoid sales.
Yes.
And actually, sometimes it's subconscious.
It is subconscious. Because here's the thing: if you're sitting at home one day and you're working on processes and you've got no sales, you think you're doing work, but you're not.
Well, you're doing work. You're just not doing your most important job.
That's
so
right.
You're not going to get the results that you want. Think of it like, a lot of times people decide they need to exercise. I'm going to get into shape. So what's the first thing a lot of people do? They buy some new running shoes, they buy a cute outfit, and they're like, oh yeah, I did something. But how much did it actually help you with your working out and losing weight?
Nothing.
0. But
Right.
You did something. So,
right.
A
lot of we all fall into those traps, and it's really important. I mean, I have to remind myself every day. Focus on things that are going to move the needle. What are the things I need to do today that are going to make a difference tomorrow, right? And geez, there's so many businesses where people don't sell. So that's just what I see.
Definitely. And I've worked with so many businesses, but I say the number one challenge they all have is they need to sell more. Selling more would fix 90% of the time the problem that they have. A lot of times that people think they need financing or they need something else, but it's really they need to sell more.
Yeah.
So that's critical. And so that's that factor. Let's go to the next one. Actually, it doesn't look like we're going to make it through all the factors, but that's okay.
Well, let's go fast. I'll be short.
Okay. So the next one is customer profile. So who is your customer? And is it the right customer? So what's your customer base? And it looks at that. So if you want to just share a little bit about customer base.
Yeah, well, who are they? I mean, are they your friends and family? Are they referrals? Are they actually target customers? There's many ways of looking at that. And so this will be a short answer, but do you know the customers? Do you know them, right? I mean, like if you're scaling, I have 100 clients with my current business. I don't know all my customers. I don't know all my employees. So as you grow, you go through those stages.
Definitely. And your customer profile has to change for you to move from one stage to the next. So, your initial customers starting out, you're only going to be able to go so far with them. But if you want to continue to grow your revenue and grow your business, you're going to have to, your customer base is going to have to evolve. And
That's right.
This measures sort of the customer base that you're focused on. And is that in line with where your business is currently?
Right.
Or are you more sophisticated or less sophisticated at it? So take a look at the next one. Operational tendency. The operational tendency factor refers to the patterns or approaches a business uses to manage its daily operations. So what?
Well, this is also important because it depends on where the where the person is, where the owner is in the business, right? And maybe you can give some examples of this. I mean, how an owner progresses through the operational tendency aspect.
Okay, so definitely, the owner drives the culture of the business, either intentionally or unintentionally. But people take their cues from the owner and what the owner lets happen within their business. But what happens is, as your business grows, your operational, what do we call it, tendency needs to become more structured, because you need the structure to be able to successfully manage and deliver on your products and services as your sales grow. So, if you don't increase the structure around your operations, then that can be a bottleneck that can keep you from moving forward faster. So,
And that includes making sure you have a vision, a mission, clearly communicated goals, and a culture that you promote, right? And that grows over time also, right? Because as you progress as a business owner from, talking to your employees informally, right? You're going to have management team. You're going to have the management needs to communicate your desires as the business owner to their subordinates. As you get even larger, you know, people are going to be working for you that you don't even know, right? So you need to create the systems and the statements and the processes and procedures that secure the way you want your business to run.
Mm-hmm. So definitely, and it's really, going from an informal environment up to, formal structured environment and the steps along the way. And at each of the 5 stages of your business, there's a different level of operational structure and tendency that you should have and develop. Okay, so now,
Which is why you need to take the assessment.
definitely. So now we've also got organizational viability. This factor refers to a business's ability to survive, adapt, and thrive over time. So definitely looking at that and sustainable growth. That's what makes your organization more viable. So, you want to share anything on organizational viability?
Well, it's tied to the last one where you create your systems, processes, and infrastructure that allows the people to grow and expand within the organization, right? You need to be able to expand in a way that is structured, that progresses as the business grows.
Yes, and one of the things we measure with this factor also is revenues relative to profit. To be sustainable at a certain level at each stage, there's a certain level of revenue and profitability that you need to get to. So, being viable is, um, you know, basically the result of managing your business effectively. So understanding how viable what you're doing is.
Yeah, in our case, we have to know what is the cost of doing business. How much does it cost to hire a virtual assistant? How much does it cost to put that virtual assistant in a building, pay for the electricity, the internet, the management, the rent, right? And how much profit am I going to make per month, right? I need to know that. I need to know that in advance. I need to plan for that. In any business, I know a guy that I work with. He doesn't know his costs. He thinks he's making money. He thinks he has good cash flow. He's telling me he's really profitable, and that he has cash flow issues, and they two don't really match, right? So you got to know those things, but the viability means it's actually going to work, because you can't make up losses in volume, right? So I mean, people think I could just sell more, but if you're losing money on everything you sell, you're just going to lose more. Uh,
Yes.
and people just that viability is critical.
Yes. And you bring up a good point. The right answer for one step is usually the wrong answer for another step.
Right.
So there's no universal, this is what you should do all the time. It's relative to where you are and where you're trying to go. So it's important to understand that. What else do we have? We've got owner work profile. As an owner, what are you working on? What's your role, responsibilities, and working style? Are you focused on the things you should be focused on as an owner? What should you be focused on based on where your business currently is? Because that's going to drive all the way through the organization. And if you're not focused on the right things, then your organization's not going to be focused on the right things.
Well, I think the issue is that, and this is the biggest challenge for a business owner, is that as you go through the stages, your job changes. Yep. And it changes profoundly, from someone strategizing about what they're going to do, to someone doing the work, to someone managing people who are doing the work and is still involved and selling, to someone managing a management team. And when you're an actual CEO, you're doing none of those things. You're not selling. You're not doing the work. You don't even know who your customers are. You don't even know who your employees are, right? And one thing that's amazing about going through the stages, because I feel somewhat qualified to talk about these stages, because I'm at the 5th stage. I actually miss being at the former stages. When I go out to the Philippines, when I first started the first couple of times, I would sit down with all the VAs and find out what they were doing, right? And get to know them, right? Fast forward to today, most of the people I remember 3 years ago are no longer with the company. And we have 120 people. We have other things to talk about. I don't have any time to meet with them. I don't have any time to sit with them like I used to. And I miss that, right? I miss being able to do that, right? I think, and that's just the progression of what happens. Imagine when we get to 1,000 people, right? You don't have any ability to do those things, and you miss what it was like when you started the business, and you enjoyed motivating and talking to the people. Anyway, that's just your job changes, and you
Yeah.
might miss the old job.
Well, but the other problem is if your job doesn't change and you don't evolve, then your organization doesn't evolve.
That's right. You
And
got to change. And
so
you got to learn and do things you might not. I mean, I'm at the point in my journey where I'm really at past anything that I learned how to do. I don't know anybody that runs a business with 100 or more people. I certainly don't know anyone who runs a business in another country, right? So I have no one to turn to. I have issues that I have to think about, learn, and handle with no prior experience, right? And no formal learning or training for such things. The only way you do these things is to find somebody who's already done them and learn from them. And it's incumbent upon you to figure that out, because if you find the wrong people, you might get the wrong advice and make big mistakes. But like I'm at a point where I'm in uncharted territory for myself. And a lot of people who are growing a business, they end up there in uncharted territory.
yeah, and that's when you need help. It's okay to get help because nobody knows everything.
Right.
But getting someone who has experience with that, having worked with so many business owners, many times I already know what you need to do before you even need to do it.
I mean, this is what's unique about Andrew. This is for the guests.
Mm-hmm.
He's worked with business owners at every one of these levels, which is rare, right? So, I mean, I am a tab business coach. We focus mostly on people in revenue $1 to $5 million. I mean, they're not scaling at that level, right? They might be level 3, level 2, maybe level 4, but like they don't really get out of those levels, right? There's not a lot of people who go through those levels, right? There's a lot of people who like take a business from one level to the next. They may come in and grow it, but there's not a lot of people who started a business and have seen it grow to hundreds of people, right? And go through all those stages themselves.
Yeah, and another thing to point out is the ability to go through from stage 1 to stage 5. The likelihood of actually doing that is less than 1%. So, each level is significantly harder than the last level. So not a lot of businesses do it. And for that reason, there's the growth factors, there's so much that you have to put in place and do.
And everyone is going to be in uncharted territory
at some point.
I mean, and you got to be comfortable with discomfort. You're going to be comfortable with being in an uncharted territory. You're going to be doing things you don't know anything about, and you don't know anybody that can help you, right? So you got to be the certain kind of personality who can handle that, who is ready to be open to learn things and say, listen, I need to learn. I don't have the goods for this. I don't have the prior experience, because this is one of the things I learned the hard way, and I'm learning through this now. I was trying to find a marketing agency, tried to find other people to help. There's a lot of people that have opinions, and there's a lot of people who are smart. And there's a lot of people who think they can give you advice, but they have no experience and really no business doing so. You, as a business owner, need to vet who you're getting advice from. And I've come to the point where I need people that have gone through it. I need people that can show me I've done it, right? I figured it out, because you will have problems in your business if you want to grow, that you'll need to figure it out, that there might be no solution for it. It might be something no one has ever done before, right? And so you have to figure out these things on the fly before you run out of money. right? A lot of people have done this, right, in life. I mean, this is what changes the business owner. It changes you as a person, right? All of a sudden, you look at life differently because you've gone through that door, you've gone through that purifying fire, and you've figured things out that no one else has. You've taken risks that nobody else has. You've figured things out that nobody else has, and that is a very humbling experience. And your help and guidance here, especially on those higher levels, is essential because a lot of people can save a lot of heartache and trouble by reading this and taking it to heart. It's not just stuff that's smart, right? There's a lot of people who write stuff that's smart. A lot of people who can say things, but it's but if it's not based on experience, it doesn't have the value, especially when you're at that level when you need that experience.
Definitely. And I think you mentioned that I've worked with people at all 5 levels, but not only that, I've had businesses at all 5 levels. So I've worked for other companies at all 5 levels. So seeing it from those different perspectives, because sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. So some of the people who actually did really well might not fully realize why or how.
Yeah, and they run into trouble when they start a second business, and they get really cocky, and they get into trouble because
Sure.
they think it comes easy. I've seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's why if you want to be really successful, you need to go through a few failures.
Definitely.
Right? I mean, like I know you have, everyone has that's been any good at this, because that's the only way you really can approach it with some humility. I mean, it's like a powerful weapon. I mean, if you shoot the weapon off incorrectly, you blow everything up. So, and we've both seen business failures.
Yes. So
Right.
so definitely. So we're running low on time, so I'm just going to read the last 3. And so first we got product life cycle. It describes the stages of your product from launch to withdrawal. So over time, your product has to evolve, and there's different stages of product evolution. The next one is talent management. It's the strategic process of optimizing employees to meet organizational goals. That's always a challenge for small business owners. Hiring, managing, leading your team. And then finally, the view from the top. What does the structure of your organization look like relative to where your organization is? So, those are the 10 growth factors. In the fall, we're going to go through each one of them for its own show, just to get a feel for them. I mean, there's so much packed into each of them, but wanted to at least do this overview. Before we close out, Gene, you want to share a few things that people should take away from what we talked about tonight?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is, first of all, that this growth framework exists at all. And if you're serious about growing your business, you should investigate it and learn it, because it is kind of universal, right? He's not come up with anything other than a very simplified and useful way of seeing where your business is and growing it. And the second thing, as I always mention, is no matter where you are, you need to surround yourself with people that can help you. Get yourself a business coach. Get yourself some advisors. Get yourself people who are ahead of you, who know more than you. You're going to need them. And you're going to save a lot of heartache by getting help. You need help. I don't think any business owner can grow without help because it's a unique path. Not everyone can be on that path. Not everyone goes on that path. But there's many people that have gone on that path and have learned a lot on that path and can help you grow your business. So if it isn't me or Andrew, find somebody else that can help you.
Excellent. No, I mean, I think that's right. There's a lot to it, but if you can continue to move forward by doing these things and following the process. So, Gene, it's been great having you on the show again, and thanks for sharing your insights. Looking forward to continuing to really discuss and dig into the growth factors one at a time.
Absolutely.
And, we'll take it from there. So hang on for a minute. I'm just going to close things out and all. So definitely, everybody, we appreciate you joining in. Hey, Marcella, appreciate everybody's comments and questions. We got to a few of the questions, but not all of them. So I apologize for that. But feel free to email a question or send it to me or Gene, and be glad to respond to it that way as well. And, as you know, each week we have a new guest and a new topic. So hopefully you can join us next week as well. Next week, what we're talking about is, why founders can't outsource fundraising, leadership, and looking at leadership, financing, and crowdfunding realities with Justin Sturber. So, I help a lot of business owners get financing, but it's not like you can say, hey, I need financing. Can you take care of it? And then you just walk away and expect financing to just come. You can't not be involved in the process. So, we're going to have a conversation about kind of what an owner's role is in getting financing, as far as, what role they should play and what they need to do, and why it's important. So hopefully you can join us next week for that topic. I think that's going to be valuable. And, just wanted to say that, at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow. Okay.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.